I know that was a vague topic, right? Sugar. I looked at that, I went, well, there's a little more to it. How many people here eat sugar? Anybody? Anybody? How many people think they don't? So here's what I will tell you. The Virgin Diet is all about food intolerance, whether it's due to your immune system, due to hormones, due to genetics, and how that can really take down your health and your weight. The number one question I got asked on the Virgin Diet was about sugar. And there were two things that I saw. People were either controlled by it, and they were just consumed with their cravings, and they felt almost powerless because sugar is a drug. It is our number one drug of choice. Or worse yet, they were confused by it, and they actually thought they were doing everything right. But they still had all of these symptoms of high sugar impact, like gas and bloating, and joint pain, and fatigue, and headaches, and inability to lose weight, difficulty focusing. And as I started to look into this, because I realized this was going to take a full book to do, what I discovered was that there were a lot of things out there that we're eating every day thinking that we're doing well. Even people who know what they're doing, it's sneaking in places you'd never even suspect. The average person right now eats 150 pounds of sugar a year. And when I say sugar, I mean sugar and some carbohydrates in there. So it's sugar and carbs. All carbs turn sugar except for fiber. And so I'm going to show you how this is sneaking into your diet, basically completely uninvited, but what you can do about it. I did a little experiment with 700 people because I believed that we could retrain our taste bud to stop wanting sweet. And so I took 700 sugar addicts, diehards, and in 2 weeks I got them to get rid of their sweet tooth. And along the way they lost 10 pounds, average person, and inches off their waist. So you want to hear about that? Yes? Yes? Yes, I love you in the front row. I'm so glad you're here. So first off, I just said that whole bit about how we're eating 150 pounds of sugar, and that's not including the carbs and the natural sugars, and your body handles it all the same. I'm going to show you how there's one worse thing out there. But how did this all happen? Do you remember Susan Powter? Am I just old? Okay, you remember like that wackadoodle. Well, it stopped the insanity, and I always went full into any diet fad, so I was the one who was the 10% calories from fat vegan out there, which means if you're a vegan eating 10% calories from fat, what are you eating? I mean, you have to be eating all carbs and sugar. But it was back in the days where we were hearing that fat was the bad guy, right? And what happened when we pulled the fat out of food? What got added, right? Sugar. So Ansel Keys and John Yudkin had this fight. John Yudkin said it was the sugar that was creating all the heart disease, all the health problems. Ansel Keys said it was the fat. Ansel Keys discredited John Yudkin. The fat got pulled out of food. The sugar got added in. Around the same time, the Japanese learned how to create high fructose corn syrup and stabilize the sugar prices, and all hell broke loose. And that's where we are now. You look at what's going on with our health now, and this idea, I wish it would be laid to rest, that it's calories in, calories out that makes me insane, and I'm sure you all feel the same way because you're in this conference. If you just look at it, there's no way we could be eating enough to make sense of what's going on now with the obesity epidemic. So it all started here because of this one man, Ansel Keys, and the hell that he has created because of this. And then we went into high fructose corn syrup, and then we pulled the high fructose corn syrup out and made it even worse by adding in the artificial sweeteners, and that's where we're at now. And if you look at it, and I'm going to skip through a bunch of this stuff because I really want to get into the program and how it works. But if you look at sugar, and I'm going to say sugar and artificial sweeteners, but artificial sweeteners are worse, play a role in all the major diseases as we know. Okay, there's nothing out there that they don't. If you look at what's going on with obesity, it's obviously not a calories issue. There's obviously more at play with now almost 35% of us obese. It's ridiculous. And little kids who are obese, it's now what, almost 17% of the little kids and 21% of the teenagers. It's crazy stuff out there. And same with heart disease. Turns out that the people who are eating 25% or more of their calories from sugar, and again, they're looking at sugar, not natural sweeteners and natural sugars and carbs, have 2.75 times the rate of heart disease as those who don't. And with cancer, basically, sugar drives insulin, and insulin drives tumor growth. I mean, this is why we use, these cells soak up the sugar. So we give people who we are checking to see if they have cancer, we give them glucose, and then put them into a PET scan because the cancer will light up. But it turns out that we know that sugar feeds a lot of the different cancers, but that fructose actually is worse and is feeding some of the more aggressive cancers out there. And then fatty liver, that we now have had to create a new name for because now we have fatty liver in kids. We have now got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and that's because of the fructose. And diabetes, now that we have 29 million Americans who have diabetes and 8 million of them walk around not knowing they have it, and 86 million Americans are pre-diabetic, like the fastest growing thing in the world. And if you look at it and look at what Dr. Lustig saw, is that while too many calories drove diabetes, that it really wasn't about the calories, it was the high fructose corn syrup driving it. And of course, dementia and osteoarthritis and all of these different things. I don't think I have to make a case that sugar is bad, like this is not new information, right? But the deal is, all sugar is not created equal. And that's really when I started to look at this and went, you know, it's not about pulling sugar out, it's really about redefining sugar. Because I think the reason that we've fallen into this trap is we've been using the wrong model, the wrong framework to look at sugar. Are you all familiar with glycemic index? This is just stupid. Do you understand what the glycemic index is? I'm just going to give you a little overview just in case you're new to it. Glycemic index looks at a food, carbohydrate-based food, and says, okay, 50 grams of this, what happens to your blood sugar? Now, if you're going to look at glycemic index, this would make a potato. First of all, who eats a food in isolation? Except for maybe chips, right? You just don't. But it makes a potato look like a carrot. Same glycemic index. So it doesn't make sense. You've got to look at how much of a food you're eating. That's the first step. The next thing is, it makes one certain type of sugar look good. So all sugar, when you start to eat any carbohydrate except for fiber, it's going to break down and start turning into sugar. And it's going to go to one of two places. There's two fates. It's going to go to glucose or it's going to go to fructose. Glucose raises your blood sugar, triggers insulin, leptin. Sounds like it's bad, but when it does that, it turns on your satiety signal so you knew that you ate. Fructose can only be metabolized by one organ in the body, the liver. So we thought fructose was good because it didn't raise blood sugar, because it's just going straight to the liver. And when it goes to the liver, if there's any room in there, how big is the liver? This big? If there's any room, it'll go to glucose and glycogen and get stored for energy later, but not much room there, especially when you're overwhelming the body with fructose because we've unwrapped it out of fruit and started putting all sorts of stuff. Because it doesn't raise blood sugar, so it reads low on the glycemic index, so we thought it was good. We thought it was safe for diabetics, even though it perturbs insulin metabolism. So fructose goes straight to the liver, bypassing raising blood sugar. So by doing that, it does not trigger insulin, it doesn't trigger leptin, it doesn't trigger ghrelin, so it doesn't tell your body what? That you ate. Goes straight to the liver where it starts making fat. And the more fructose you eat, the more you elevate something called GLUT5 transport system. So the more you eat, the better you get at doing this, at making fat. Is this something that you want to be good at? Now, besides that, fructose is super sweet, which is why we like to do it. What happens when you eat sweet? What do you want more of? Right? You eat sweet, you want more sweet. It's super aging. The most aging thing that you can do to your body is sugar. And of those sugars, fructose is more aging than any other sugar. It glycates 7 times more than the other sugars. Glycates means protein and sugar bind together without the need of enzymes, wrinkles, brown skin, aging. Creates fatty liver. You want to make a lab rat hypertensive, all you have to do is give them a load of fructose. Feeds the bad gut bacteria. So the idea of us looking at glycemic index is why we've ended up thinking agave is a health food, which we all know here agave is not a health food, right? That just drives me crazy. I still see it. So what I did was I said, all right, let's agree this old model is what has made us fat, old, and tired. And let's reevaluate this whole thing and let's go and look at glycemic load, not glycemic index. So we take in the amount of calories we're actually getting from something, fructose grams, and then contrast that with fiber and nutrient density and create a whole new rating scale for sugar. So that's what I did, called the sugar impact scales. Because we've been looking at sugar all wrong, and it's been creating these problems. And then within there, because I'm looking now at the impact, I can put artificial sweeteners into that mix too. Because what I want to know is this raising insulin? Is it perturbing insulin metabolism? Is it raising blood sugar? Is it feeding the bad bacteria in the gut? How's it impacting your ghrelin? What about your mood? What about your energy? Is it making you store fat or burn it, right? And so I put things into high, medium, and low sugar impact, of which artificial sweeteners obviously went into the highest sugar impact of all. And what I loved was that study. Did you guys see that study that came out this last week in Nature about the gut microbiome? So I've got this one here. I just dig this. So artificial sweeteners glycate just like sugar does, that very aging thing, along with caramel coloring does too. Raise insulin. They raise glucose and raise insulin. I mean, we always kind of suspected this. Do you see thin people drinking diet soda? For the most part. Not really. What do you see? If an overweight person with a pizza and a diet soda, somehow they like, right? So what we see with diet sodas is this. Number one, they feed the bad bacteria in the gut. We have this balance in our gut. We have 100 trillion bacteria, way more than we have cells, way more than us. And they are 100 times the DNA that we have, totally influenced by diet. And if you're doing artificial sweeteners, you're feeding the bad bacteria in the gut. And if you're feeding the bad bacteria in the gut, they actually can extract more calories from the food you eat and store them as fat. And it turns out this study happened in under a week. They gave people who never were drinking diet soda. I was like, who the heck volunteered for this one? I'm sure I'll toxify myself for a week. 1 week, and this just shows you how quickly this can happen. These people lost their glucose tolerance. That means they could not tolerate sugar, which means they raised insulin more. And when your insulin's high and stays high, what happens? You cannot burn off stored body fat. One of the mechanisms now for how these artificial sweeteners, but besides the fact we know that when you eat sweet, you crave sweet, and they glycate like the others, and they raise insulin, they feed the bad bacteria in the gut. So loads of studies. Now that was a cool study, actually. I don't know if I can go back. A cool study showing that as opposed to people who are drinking regular soda, now this is not a go drink regular soda, but people who are drinking a diet soda, these women had the higher risk for diabetes than those who were drinking a regular soda. And of course, the other thing that we know is that people don't drink just one diet soda. So again, I looked at this as kind of like the earth is flat till we figure it out better, and the glycemic index was right until we figured out better. And that's where we are with it now, is the glycemic index has really done us wrong. And for so many of us, we've got these things right under our nose that we're eating, and quite often we're doing it because we're being duped by misinformation. We think we're doing everything right because it says healthy or natural or no sugar added on the label, or it says something crazy like vitamin water, and it's vitamins with 31 grams of sugar. Like this, somehow one of those could counteract the other one. But this is the one that pisses me off the most. Doesn't it? You guys have to support me this next year, because I'm going to get my butt kicked out there by these big corporations, because I have decided that this is enough, that we have got to, I'm going to like Susan powder the sugar, right? But we really have to get this out there, because this type of stuff where you can take, do you know that you can write no sugar added and put fruit juice concentrates and fruit juice purees on the labels? You can add that in and put no sugar added. You're sophisticated, you study this stuff. What about the people who don't and just go to the grocery store and want to pick out something good for their kids? And it says no sugar added, so they think, that, I know, I'll get Bobby the apple juice and those little fruit treats that say no sugar added. Not knowing that the apple juice has more fructose, it's worse for you than a Coke. But yet the American Academy of Pediatrics says that you should watch the first 6 months of age, because of course, as we know, fructose gives you major diarrhea because your GLUT5 transport system hasn't come up yet. But when you get to the age 7, something magical happens and you can have 12 ounces of juice every day. That's their recommendation. Do you know how much sugar is in 12 ounces of juice? 44 grams. American Academy of Pediatrics says that. makes me so angry. So you get this green juice, this naked green juice that says it's boosted green machine. Boosted because it actually has 4 servings of fruit in it. It's boosted with fruit so that you will think you're having something good, but you got to cover the taste of the greens because, as we know, they don't taste very good, right? So there you go. That's the type of stuff that's going on. And again, 56 grams of sugar in 16 ounces. A soda has 44 grams. And you know what's worse about that? You think you did something great. Someone is having that thinking, you know, I got my greens in today. Well, you know what you got? You didn't even get a serving of greens in there. You got 4 servings of fruit. And you didn't get 4 servings of fruit because you didn't get the fiber, you just got the juice hit. You unwrap the fruit, hit them with the fructose, and then all hell breaks loose. So the bottom line is, and the way I wanted to look at this, the reason I wanted to look at this differently is food is information. And it's all about eating foods that make you able to use fat for fuel, so you have steady, sustained energy, you can think well, you don't have brain fog, and that's really one of my tests with people. And Dave and I were just doing a little podcasting, and my test is you shouldn't have to snack, you should be able to go 4 to 6 hours before you need to eat again. If you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours, there's something wrong. And I say that to pick on a lot of these popular diets that still tell you have to eat every 2 to 3 hours, and I think they must be in cahoots with like the snack pack people, right? You know, I actually got a big box sent to my house. I get all this stuff, and I think these PR companies do not do their homework. Like, one of them, I got this big basket from GNC of all soy products, right? I'm like, then I get this big box. I open it up, and there's an invitation to join the snacking council. And all of these, like, low-fat chips. Right? I know, isn't that amazing? And then I just got a little note from the dried fruit company, who shall remain nameless, but they aren't the raisins, they're the other ones that sound like the raisins with the C in front. And I got a little note because apparently I might have bashed them in a talk talking about if you have a salad and you have glazed walnuts and those on them and then have raspberry vinaigrette, you just had a sundae, not a salad. And they go, our product fits with the USDA MyPlate. And I go, exactly. You know, it fits, you know, it's the same amount of sugar as a 1/4 cup of raisins. We had to add sugar because we don't have as much natural sugar. I'm like, you're actually, I want to post this on Facebook. You are just making my case for me. It's crazy. So everything that I put together with the Virgin Diet, with the Sugar Impact Diet, was all based on the fact that food is information. And you want to design the plate that you eat by, when you eat, so that your body is able to use fat for fuel, that you're slowing down or de-aging, that you're reducing inflammation, that you can think straight, and you don't have cravings. You shouldn't have cravings. These ones make me, do you know this is the most popular cookie? Did you know this? Did you? Isn't it? Well, it is, because here's what's so crazy. I mean, when I saw this, okay, so here's the funny story, though. This is really, really horrifying. So I go to the store with my older son, and we go and we buy all the crap we can find, because we're going to do this kitchen makeover for my book launch. So we are going to stock my house with all this crap, so we had to go get it because it wasn't there. And then we're going to show swaps. So here's high sugar impact, here's low sugar. So we go get all this crap. So I have 2 houses, and one's where we do all of our tapings. So we put it all in the other house. And then my sons come down because I'm going to practice my public television special, and I'm making them watch. And my other son walks in, and he's like, wow! What? You know, because I have the Oreos. He's like, you know, can I have some? I'm like, do not tell anybody. Like, if they ever interview you, do not ever tell them that you did. So, but what's so funny is they have low-fat Oreos, and they have, like, fat-free Oreos, like, you know what, you just more sugar. And what is that stuff in the middle? Does anyone know what that is? What is it? So anyway, I'm like, all right, you know, go for it, man. Have the double stuff. Knock yourself out. So he sits down with these Oreos, and he gets through, and this is a big kid. He's 17, he's 6'3", very athletic. Has 2 of them, he's like, I can't eat anymore. I feel sick, right? So this is a drug, it's very interesting. Connecticut College did the study on Oreos, and they did Oreos and morphine. They both lit up the brain, same way. Lit up the reward center of the brain. The only difference was when they went and said, okay, rats, which ones would you rather have, the morphine or the Oreos? They want the Oreos. more pleasure from the Oreos than morphine. Crazy. And I look at the ultimate drug trifecta is cereal and milk. Ever notice how many people have cereal and milk at night, right? Gluten, dairy, sugar. Gluten, it's the trifecta, opiate trifecta of bad. But again, what I talked about is that not all sugar is created equal. And when I looked at this, I wanted to say, we're not going to say no sugar. It's about lowering your sugar impact and reclaiming your sugar sensitivity so you start to appreciate the natural sweetness of things. We've gotten so far away from that. What makes me the most upsetting is seeing these little kids' products where they're either doing fruit juice concentrates or artificial sweeteners, and they're just destroying their sweet tooth and their sweet taste at a young age and making them drug addicts. We are creating drug addicts worldwide. This is, when you look at it, the #1 drug of choice worldwide. There's no question. And our health is absolutely going down because of it. So I set out to prove that you could actually get people off of sugar and reclaim your taste buds and do it quickly. Because I know that if I can't make someone do it quickly, they're not going to stick with it. It's very clear from the research in weight loss that the people who lose weight fast actually lose more weight and keep it off. But just from a general standpoint, we're like fast. We want results fast. So I knew I had to be able to show this fast. But I also knew when I looked at all the programs out there was that people fail on this. And the reason they fail is because you bring someone who's a sugar burner, either because, again, they might be eating no sugar in their diet, but they're having, the green drink with the carrots and the beets and the apples in it, or they're having the gluten-free bread with the jam on it, or some of these other things, so their body is used to being fueled on sugar. And if you take that person and you pull that all out, they will crash. And in 2 days or less, they're going to be going and searching for it. So I created a framework to be able to get people to, within 3 weeks, get totally off of it. And it starts with testing. Because again, for so many people, you think you're doing everything right, but in reality, this stuff is sneaking in everywhere, like balsamic vinegar. It's syrup, sun-dried tomatoes, the pickles. Just not being as vigilant when you go out to eat. I found at the place that I love to go that has these amazing, they're called tomahawks, these huge grass-fed beef steaks, but I found that they actually rubbed gluten on them. It's the one we were at that night, yes. So, who knew these things that you would not know, right? So first thing I do with people is have them take this sneaky sugar inventory so they can find out where all these things are hiding, and then we take a sugar impact quiz so that you can connect the dots and go, oh, you know what? What I eat affects my mood. I'll never forget getting a call from school when one of my sons, I think he was 8 years old, and he'd won a contest. He'd sold the most wrapping paper for something, and so they gave him a pound bag of M&Ms. They gave an 8-year-old kid a pound bag of M&Ms. And then they called me because he was climbing the walls, and they wanted me to take him. And I'm like, I'm not taking him. You keep him. You keep him for the next couple of hours till he passes out, because that's what's going to happen next. So again, the sugar impact, so you can start to connect the dots between what you're eating and how you feel and what you weigh. And then we do the taper week, and this is the all-important, no matter how good your program is to start, no matter how well you're eating, it's tapering down from some of the higher sugar impact foods to the medium sugar impact foods. It's starting to eat by the sugar impact plate. It's adding, and I have everyone do a sugar impact, a shake every day, and then eating by the clock, which means going longer in between meal plans. So people are used to eating every 2 to 3 hours. We go to 3 hours, then we go to 4 hours. And that is so critical because, again, one of the biggest things I see out there, I'm thinking of this big diet book that's been on the New York Times. It just drives me crazy, some of these things, so I think of what they're doing to people's health. And this is a doctor who's I think he's a Harvard doc. He's on TV all the time, and he has people eat 6 meals a day. He says diet sodas are fine. It's the habits around them that are the problem. I saw that I was getting dental work done, and so I turned on this TV show and I heard that, and I'm surprised I didn't get the drill down my throat. So I was like, ah, this stuff. But people see it on TV and they believe it is real. So, and he's a doctor, and people want to believe this. They want to believe they could have chocolate-covered pretzels before bed, right? I was kind of looking, going, sign me up. I want those chocolate-covered pretzels before bed, but I've connected the dots between what I'm eating and how I feel. And here's the deal. with those 100-calorie snack packs. I was just talking to Dave, and he goes, you know what, if these people were really smart, what they would do is they'd put the first pack out there, and you could have that one free. Because who eats one 100-calorie snack pack, right? They eat one, and what happens? They get hungrier. And because they're a drug, they're gluten and dairy, now they want more, because you've got that trifecta of gluten, dairy, and sugar. So snacking is one of the ones that makes me the most crazy, especially eating before bed. Because when you eat before bed, now you're going to raise insulin, you're going to be digesting while you should be healing. But if you've got blood sugar up and insulin up, you're going to suppress ghrelin, suppress growth hormone at the time you want it up the most. So during the next 2 weeks, and this is to me the most exciting thing, is what I really focused on the most as I was going through all this research on sugar was looking at fructose. And it's just still, you know, someone's got to go out and really start to dig deep into fructose, because of course some of it will depend on like ripeness of food and how it's cooked. But for the most part, you can get a lot of information out there on fructose. And what I do during the transition phase, and where we're getting the most fructose obviously is in fruit and a lot of these processed foods. I have people drop fruit entirely out of their diet except for things that aren't really fruit, like avocados and olives and lemons and limes, and take their fructose down to as close to zero as possible, because what that does is it drops your body stops producing this GLUT5 transport protein, and you can't handle fructose the way you used to. And fructose is what's really lighting up your sweet tooth. And during that time too, you go low sugar impact. Looks very similar to the Bulletproof diet. And what we saw happen in those 2 weeks, especially because we tapered first, which was all important, you've got to taper. During those 2 weeks, people had lots of different choices of things to eat, but we started to work on savory and spicy and salty, other tastes, and you start to get your tastes back, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like cinnamon starts to taste sweet, as it should. And then the important thing that we do at the end, which is at the last week during Transformed, I have people go back and taste some of the different higher, medium sugar impact foods and try a high sugar impact food. Just like in the Virgin Diet, where I have people test foods one by one to see how they feel. And it's always the hardest part, because once people realize how great they feel low sugar impact and what their energy's like and their joint pain and their focus, they don't want to go back. But this is the most critical part, because once you realize what it feels like when you have that salad with the raspberry vinaigrette, when you have that salmon with the teriyaki glaze, these things that again we thought were innocuous, but they add up. And all of a sudden you can feel your energy go down, or your focus go down, or you get bloated, and you can connect the dots between what you're eating and how you feel. It completely changes the conversation around food. And it doesn't get to be, because one of the things that drives me the most crazy out there, and I get asked all the time, is, JJ, what about a cheat day? And all I can think about, because first of all, no one who is just dialed in like this ever says, what about a cheat day? Because they've already connected the dots and they know how crappy it makes them feel. But I think, well, would you say that to an alcoholic? Yeah, go out today, have some tequila shots. No biggie. You know, people who are addicted to food want a cheat day. And that's the person who can't have a cheat day. Because the minute you have it, you're not gonna go have cheat and go, I'm gonna binge out on some broccoli today. You know, it's gonna be the cereal and milk, it's gonna be the chips, it's gonna be all that crap. And then it's gonna light you back up again. And now you're gonna have to struggle through that. It makes no sense. But you won't want to go there now that you've connected the dots. It's no longer an issue. So I'm going to give you this little one, and I'm going to give you another one that I really love. And this was a gal, and just more I want to talk about her because she dropped her fasting blood sugar from 97 to 80, which I just loved, and dropped 4 inches off her waist. And she's just a bitty person. When she told me she dropped 4 inches off her waist in 2 weeks, I'm like, please do that again, because I don't believe that you could have possibly done that. But one who I just adore, I have another guy who did this, and he sent me a picture. And this is a complete sugar addict and had been for years, and actually had the Virgin Diet. I was talking to him on the phone. We were going to do a project together. He owns a wild seafood company. He'd never opened the book. I'm like, well, you have to open it. That's how those things work. But he didn't know what he'd eat. And I'm like, you own a seafood company, a grass-fed beef company? He sent me a picture of him in this whole sea of cheesecakes. And I thought, oh, this is going to be the, like, sorry, you know, my excuses as to why I did this. And he goes, you know, I'm standing in this sea of cheesecakes, and I actually feel nothing. Nothing. So he's 60 pounds down now, but the issue is he's completely changed his tastes. And that's victory, because now I know he's not going back. Because now he knows when he eats something, what happens, and now we'll never say, what about a cheat day, right? No splurges. So that's a little preview. I haven't been able to talk about this yet because the book comes out November 4th. It is available for pre-order on Barnes & Noble, and they've got it 50% off, and it will be out November 4th, but you now know more than anybody else knows. That's the Sugar Impact Diet, and I appreciate you hearing about it, and I'll be around if you have questions. Thank you.